So Grayson, I have a burning question. When you first started coming to church, was there any misconceptions that you had in your mind? And if there was any, what were they?
I showed up to church honestly as an atheist. I just had this big kind of burning question about, does God exist? What are churches about? What goes on in these places? And yeah, I think I was full of misconceptions, honestly. I was vaguely spiritually open-minded, but
Yeah.
I wasn't already a Christian when I showed up at church for the first time. Yeah, and I just kept on going, I guess. I think that it was amazing to see everybody in action at a church. It was great to see everybody worshiping, being together. I understood that there was something there. I just didn't quite know what it was yet.
Sure, that's great. And what brought you to church in general?
To be honest, it was I was going through a lot of different stuff in my life at the period of time where I pulled up to the whole question about God, just the consequences of some of my own behaviors, I knew I was hurting more than just kind of mentally and physically. I figured that there was something spiritual going on at that period in my life, and I wanted answers to some of the bigger questions in life. I wanted to understand, this has been a part of our experience for thousands and thousands of years, and I don't really even know the first thing about it. Who is Jesus Christ? What is the Bible? All of these questions about God. And I figured I'd go to the source. I would go and kind of get an answer for these questions that I really had in my heart about the bigger topics in life.
It's a pretty good start, going to the source.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so next question. Now that we've established how you sort of came to church in general, what made you choose an Orthodox church?
Yeah, what interested me in it, I had by chance met a series of Orthodox guys. I had met some men that were Orthodox Christians at different points in my life. And as somebody that wasn't a natural church-going type of dude, it just was not me, But each of these guys that I met, they really had something that I liked. They had a sense of peace of mind about them. It was very clear that they were involved. And also I could talk to them about all of it. That's what I found so great. I could argue with people about things. And each one of them were really great examples of men, That was important to me, to understand maybe there is something going on in the Orthodox faith. And when I looked at the claims that Orthodoxy makes about itself, Orthodoxy is the original teaching of Jesus Christ. It's been passed down generation to generation until today. Well, that was very compelling to me, that piqued my curiosity, and I decided to basically just go from there. Actually go in and see what each one of these guys has, can I have the same experience? And I think that's why I was drawn to an Orthodox church as opposed to the other denominations. It was an ancient faith. It was, preserved. And also they were welcoming. They wanted people to get involved and to come to understand it.
Yeah, so you mentioned in your background that you were atheist. A lot of the time, atheism perpetuates a materialistic worldview, and it doesn't really conceptualize the idea of spirituality and there being a spiritual realm. So how did you sort of grasp that new concept, having a faith and Christianity in general, there is that spiritual element?
Yeah, I think for me, just background, I was a very convinced atheist as well, which it was so strange that I was even there in the first place, you know what I mean? I was a very unlikely candidate really for any of this. But I think that I didn't even understand the claims that Christians make I didn't understand like the central parts of the faith. And people were very willing to explain it to me. There were just a couple of propositions to it, that, there is a creator. There is a God that created all of this. And that we each have a personal relationship with him. That was so foreign to my worldview. But they asked me to basically consider that as a possibility, And the next claim is that creator entered into this world, visited all of us, as the person of Jesus Christ. That is the story of the Bible.
Which is another big claim.
Yeah, huge. And I think that grappling with those questions, I know that I needed an answer to those things because, it's an enormous kind of question to grapple with. And I was this like scientific, rationalistic kind of guy, and I was amazed at how I was not asked to put that aside. I was asked to evaluate, these claims to see, is there evidence for these things? And I found it, when I was open-minded, when I spoke with the priests, when I spoke with, members of the church. And they had incredible arguments basically in favor of it, and ones that I just was not able to dismiss out of hand, even though I would have self-identified as an atheist. And I think that I just kept on walking that path and understanding I could be wrong about what I believe. I could be wrong about atheism. I could be wrong about the God question. It is more than possible, that God did come and visit us, and that's the central claim of the faith. And I mean, I know where I landed. And it was a very long and interesting journey, and like I said, very unlikely for a person like me, for my personality that I had, the things that I really clung to, the things that I really believed, and it's an amazing relief to have understood that I was wrong about all of it, I learned that in the church, and yeah, it's been an enormously transformative journey, to be honest, to go from one to the other.
Thanks. So, Grayson, when we were chatting amongst ourselves earlier, you mentioned to me, at age of 33 was when you accepted God. So I was just thinking to myself, it would have been, I guess, really difficult, the change that would have happened inside of you, because you had spent so many years, 33 years, as a non-believer, as an atheist. So can you sort of put into words like the material changes that you saw on the outside, and also the spiritual changes that were made within? Yeah.
I think maybe the best thing that got left behind out of all of it was just like the contempt that I had. I used to really, have harsh views of like religious people. I thought you had to be kind of low IQ to like fall for any of that. And also too, like the...
Fun fact, we're not.
Yeah, I know, yeah. I think it was amazing to be able to like engage with it in good faith, like after being able to move past that and understand, okay, maybe there is something special to scripture. Like maybe this isn't just a book that a bunch of guys wrote, Maybe there is something to the claim that God is active in the world and that God influences our minds and our hearts, that this is his kingdom, this is his creation. Those are things that I seriously would have like really, laughed off or just disregarded entirely. It's amazing to be able to engage with spiritual topics and spiritual discussion from a Christian viewpoint and not have that strange like conflict in my heart anymore. I can just genuinely enjoy the journey of exploring all of it, looking further into it. I'm really glad that in like the book of my life, there's an answer to the God question now. There's one that enables me to engage and to continue to grow and develop and to not have that like kind of contempt that I had prior to investigating any of it. Like to truly be open-minded now to these larger questions and to know that there's a framework, to know that, human beings have grappled with this for our entire existence, and that I can have my place in that as well. I can grow and develop, I can learn, I can continue to be a part of God's whole universe and his whole experience that he's running, in this world. That was one of the biggest changes that I experienced first. Just all that contempt that I used to have, dropped off, and I could actually approach the subject open-minded, good faith. So
That's really cool. Thanks for sharing.
yeah.